Okay, this video is for 11.3a, Solving Absolute Value Equations, Part 2. So, we're going to do what we did yesterday, basically, but we're going to take it one step further. So there is going to be more than just x inside the absolute value symbol. For example, in number 1, x minus 2, all of that is inside the absolute value symbol. So we're going to talk about how to solve an equation like that. Now, we discussed yesterday that when you have something inside the absolute value symbol, x minus 2 or just x or whatever, you can drop the absolute value bars by putting a plus or minus on the other side of the equation. So we're going to do that again today, but because we have to do some extra work once we drop the bars, we're actually going to split it into two separate equations. One equal to the positive version and one equal to the negative version. So there's nothing outside the absolute value bars, so we're going to go straight to just taking them off, and that's going to require that we do this. X minus 2 equals 5, so that's the equation equaling the positive version, and then we also have x minus 2 equals negative 5. So we're setting up two equations here. We can drop the absolute value bars around x minus 2 if we create two equations using x minus 2. One equal to positive 5, one equal to negative 5. And now that we're at this point, we get x by itself in both of these equations, and we'll have two answers. So, x minus 2 equals positive 5. Let's work on that blue one first. Add 2 to both sides, and you get x equals 7. So you can write 7 down here. Now, we have x minus 2 equals negative 5. Again, add 2 to both sides, and you get x equals negative 3. So negative 3 goes down here. And now we've solved this problem. For this to work, x would either have to equal 7 or negative 3. Let's do one more. X plus 2 equals 3. Again, if we want to drop the absolute value signs, we need to set this equation equal to the positive and negative version of 3. So we'll have two equations. X plus 2 equals positive 3, and x plus 2 equals negative 3. Subtract 2 from both sides. X equals 1. So x equals 1. Or, again, subtract 2 from both sides. X equals negative 5. So x equals 1 or negative 5. Alright, now let's go down to the bottom and let's look at something that can occur while we're solving absolute value problems. Now, what we've talked about is that the absolute value of a number has to be positive, right? Because even if you have the absolute value of like negative 7, the answer is still 7 because it's 7 units away from 0. So if you ever have an equation that has only absolute value on one side and a negative number on the other side, you can't solve it because you can never take the absolute value of something and end up with a negative. So basically that's what we want to look for in 10, 11, and 12. Do these absolute value equations end up equaling negative numbers? If they do, then no, you cannot solve this equation. If they don't, if they equal a positive number, then yes, you can solve it. Let's do number 11. So we need to get the absolute value piece by itself. So that's going to require that we start by subtracting 10 from both sides, which leaves us with the absolute value of 8x plus 9 equals negative 7. And this is what I mean by the absolute value function equaling a negative number. Everything on the left is inside our absolute value brackets. So there's nothing else we can do besides try to get rid of those. But what's on the right is a negative number. And you can never have an absolute value anything equal negative number. So the answer here is no, this equation does not have a solution. Let's go to the back. Alright, take a look at number 30. We're going to do the same thing we did in 1 and 2 on the front side. It's just a tougher equation to solve. So we see that our absolute value equation is contained in this fraction. So for us to get to it, we need to get this fraction by itself. That means we have to subtract 6 from both sides first. That'll leave us with 3 times the absolute value of x minus 7 divided by 5 equals 3. And now to cancel out the bottom number in this fraction, we want to multiply both sides by 5. These two 5's cancel out, and that gives us 3 times the absolute value of x minus 7 equals 15. Now we divide both sides by 3. These 3's cancel. The absolute value of x minus 7 equals 5. And now we've got the absolute value by itself. So now we split it up into two equations. So x minus 7 equals 5. And then we also need x minus 7 to equal negative 5. And then it's one more step for each of them. Add 7 to both sides. X equals 12. Add 7 to both sides. X equals positive 2. And those are your two answers down there.